You know, Australia obviously has an obsession, as you say, with property, and it kind of makes me sick.
Why is that a problem that we're so obsessed with property?
It's an unproductive asset. It's shelter for the people that live in it. It's rent for the people that own it, but it's not creating jobs. I don't think people realise the level of returns that you can get from a business compared to a house.
I'm pretending I'm in the comments. I'm starting to rage at Charlie, so I'm going to throw a few of those comments to you. Surely from a risk profile, it's safer for me to go into property.
That used to be the case, right? The thing that I've been thinking about is like the mentality. We don't deal well with cringe. We've got like a slur for people that try hard. But trying hard is critical to get ahead if you're a young person. Because things aren't handed to you the way they were. Australians are used to deferring to higher levels of authority. That means that we often take experts at face value, but I think Australians would do better to sort of question why things are the way they are.
Overarching question, is Australia a good place to start a business? Welcome to The Fat. My name is Frank Reef, and I started this podcast after I sold a business for $180 million with my two brothers. It's part of my mission to raise $1 million for Children's Cancer Institute by writing a cookbook called Eat With Purpose. In this series, I'm going to bring different types of founders on for you can share in their journeys and their lessons and insights. I'm also going to bring on guests who are in the middle of scaling their business. I want to make sure the challenges are relative to you and make sure you can take insights that you can use in each and every day in your business. I hope you enjoy. Charlie Gearside, co-founder of Eucalyptus. Welcome to Chew the Fat.
Frank, thank you.
Mate, I'm excited for today, I tell you what. Let's start here for the audience. Like, what do we need to know about your childhood that made you the person you are today?
Ooh, going a way back there. I think I had a pretty normal Australian sort of suburban upbringing. Dad was an artist. Still is, I guess. You never really give that up. Mum, a teacher, went to a public school, spent half my time in the bush, creative, but always thought that I needed to have an office job to sort of be an adult. And it's sort of taken me like 35 years to realise that the creativity is what it's about. So yeah, I would say normal, great Australian upbringing. Very fond memories of Australia through that sort of 90s, hashtag 90s kid.
Yeah, the golden days.
Yeah.
The golden eras. And for those that don't know, obviously Koala, Eucalyptus, amazing companies. Can you give us a bit of a snapshot of the journey between those businesses? Yeah.
So I was always into computers. But there was a period in my life where advertising and sort of marketing was the attractive thing to me. I think I watched too many episodes of Mad Men. And I was like, advertising's, the place I want to be. And so early in my life, I was building websites, decided I wanted to go into advertising, worked really hard there and burnt out. And I was driving through Surrey Hills one day and saw the Koala office. So Koala, a mattress company, but doesn't look anything like a mattress company. I mean, the office itself was tiny, signaling that it was an online business. I was like, okay, there's something cool here. And so I got a job at Koala as a sort of front-end web developer.
How big was the team at that time?
About a dozen.
Okay.
So
cool.
Danny and Mitch, the founders of Koala, had been in it for over a year. And sort of, they'd YOLO'd it. It was the peak of Facebook ads back then, early days, before the big brands were spending money on Facebook ads. So you get a lot of impressions for cheap. Danny and Mitch had built a really amazing sort of simple supply chain that allowed them to grow quickly. And I got in there as a front-end web developer, got sacked from being on the tools pretty quickly, wasn't much of a coder, and then thrust into sort of a creative role And I guess that was the start of 2 years at Koala that sort of just opened my eyes to like brand building and sort of business, I suppose. And then it was to jump to connect the dots to Eucalyptus. It was seeing what Danny and Mitch had built at Koala gave Tim, my business partner who was at Koala, Alexi, and later Benny, the three blokes I would start Eucalyptus with, it sort of gave us the confidence that, hey, we're not that different. We can have a crack ourselves. And so we did have a crack. We started Eucalyptus, and that was nearly 7 years ago. Yeah.
You know what's really interesting? You said there, like, we're not that different. I think that's one of those like really important, cool revelations that when you've been exposed to the right place or the right people, you get to have that. You know, when you have those, you know, you might put someone on a pedestal, and then you get to meet some of these people, whether it be millionaires, billionaires, or whatever, or built cool companies or cool creators, whatever it is, and you go like, oh, you're a normal person, and like you have the same like fears and all of those kind of things. Like, oh, I can do that. And like just being in the right places to be exposed to that, I think is like a super important thing to have.
Totally.
So talk to me about like, you know, we won't get into the numbers of Eucalyptus and stuff like that, but you know, from an outsider's perspective, it's quite obvious. A pretty monumental rise over those 7 years. And I think one of the through lines as I look at Koala and as I look at Eucalyptus is like, it feels like a really strong like brand and marketing play. Like, what are the biggest lessons that you learned and implemented that could help the audience of like how you guys were able to position those brands?
Yeah. I think that the obvious one that comes to mind is that it's great having the best product in the world, but if no one's using it or no one's talking about it, it doesn't matter. So it was this distribution first mindset that when you combine it with a really interesting brand and perspective about the world, you can have a lot of fun and you can cut through the absolute. Like, no, you know, I think the stats about advertising, and this is someone who used to be in advertising making, you know, billboards for Combank and all that stuff, is I think 90% of ads are just ignored. You imagine the amount of money companies waste on advertising. Just being in that 3%, being clear, having a perspective, really, it was just a lot of fun it was a goal worth pursuing. So that sort of got us into all sorts of trouble at Koala with our advertising. I nearly got fired from Koala in my first 2 weeks for I wrote a radio ad about Jesus going to sleep on a Koala mattress and waking up 3 days later for Easter, and really upset the Christian community in like northwestern Sydney.
It's literally the Bible Belt of Australia.
Yeah, sorry, I know you got a big listenership there, so apologies in advance. But yeah, it was sort of like, okay, you can have some fun, you can build the brand, and then being so connected to like writing the ads and then being in the Shopify dashboard the same day or the next day. It's like that feedback loop that I wasn't getting in advertising. And I was like, cool. Holy shit. Like you can do things. Yeah, it was nuts.
That's really, it's super interesting. And I think that's one of the really cool, unique things about like the e-com play is that immediate feedback loop. You know, the immediate feedback loop of being able to connect a single piece of creative to like, you know, immense throughput on the particular channel. For the audience, like, you know, as they hear that, they go, okay, amazing. Like, okay, how do I become part of that 3%? Like, what do you practically do in a business to go, okay, you know, Koala, many mattress companies, Eucalyptus, you know, lots of, medical supplies. How do I become that brand that then finds that 3% spot?
Yeah. I think people, it's so easy to overthink, right? It's like, your message has to be clear first. So most ads just don't make sense. And then obviously you worry about stopping the scroll with, you know, you're the master of it, with an interesting perspective. I think being, you know, people think about brand as this like separate entity to themselves, but I think early in, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, there's only you or a couple of other people in your business. There's no real reason that you have to disconnect that business from your worldview. And so, treating that company like it's a person that has a perspective, and it forces you to be interesting, and be in that 3%.
That's cool. From a practical sense, like how do you, as the company grows, I imagine it then becomes harder and harder. But like practically, like how do you go about when it's like whether it be a campaign or a next push? Like how do you get in? Like what's your process to like get in the zone and find that spot? Because I know that's probably something you've now had to think about for the YouTube, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But it's like I'd love to understand, and this might even like people might not even care, but for me,
yeah, personal. I've actually been thinking about this a lot with the AI because prompting an AI is similar to briefing writing a creative brief. And if it's too broad, if the brief is too broad, if you go, hey, write me an awesome ad about a mattress, it just like explodes, right? There's too much, or it gets really generic.
Yeah.
I think humans are the same. But so I guess my process has always been know vaguely what sort of business goal you want to achieve. So for example, to use the mattress example again, it's like, all right, well, we want to fixate on how mattresses, this particular type of mattresses are better for your back. So we're going to try that sort of territory. And then let that be your sort of boundaries about what to talk about. And that's your analytical mode. And then you switch hats to your creative mode. It's like, hey, this is the brief. It's about this particular thing. Do your worst.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, building constraint, having an awesome sort of brief, and knowing when you're swapping hats from your sort of like nerd mode into your like artiste mode.
You know what's one thing I've realized this year? I don't think for whatever reason, I've never experienced this, but now this idea of like swapping hats from that creative to that analytical has become something that I find incredibly hard. Like if I've spent let's say the whole morning on that creative zone and then I go into a job interview into something that's like, it has to be more logical, like my brain, like to cognitively switch is like fucking really, really hard. So like my process now is I've very, very much had to like find like what are the right times in the day to have that right creative energy. Yeah. And then, essentially try and block out that time and not try and switch because it's like a constantly back and forth switching. It's like really, really hard to actually get anything like magic out.
Totally. I've seen your like day in the lives. The context switching is like, it looks tough.
Here's a tricky one for you. Like if you had to boil down like 3 fundamental truths of what it takes to build start again. If you had to boil down what are 3 fundamental truths to build a good business, what would that be?
As in personality things or like truths about the business itself?
Yeah, I mean, like, so let's say you're a founder and you're like, what are 3 things you know to be true that founder needs to do in order to build a good business?
Yeah, well, I think the first one for me is that the understanding of like a business model that's not all businesses are made equal from like a unit economics and business model perspective. So a lot of people think that all businesses are like, oh, I'll start an agency is very different to like, I'll start a like recurring revenue software business. But people don't really know that at the start. So it's like, I think knowing what shape of business you have is like a critical step. Knowing that, I think that the other thing is a lot of people, particularly, I think we have a tendency to do this in Australia, is to not want to disrupt. So like things have been, we certainly experienced this at Eucalyptus where the medical community are like, well, you can't do that because that's the way things have always been done. And most people don't dig past that. But I think a founder needs the ability to like dig through the no's, dig through the it's not viable, it's the way it's always been done. And that's where the gold is under there. And that's like the act of disrupting. And then in terms of the third one, I think timing is what comes to mind. It's like there are so many great yeah, you know, like all the businesses that are popping off now globally have probably been talked about for 30 years, but like it's the macro conditions that make it possible. So just being aware of like trends and technology is like critical, really, to be able to surf the wave.
I don't want to be that guy, but like, come on, please buy it. Eat with Purpose Cookbook. Eatwithpurpose.net. Come on, man. So fucking true.
Yeah.
You know what? When you said the digging through the nose and you find the gold, fucking that lit me up because like lately I've been thinking like for someone like a Mel Perkins Canva, like having you know 100 people tell her no for the for the first round of investments, and just like being in that world of like imagining what that feels like at the 92nd, and then you go into the 93rd pitch, and like how much self-belief you have to have, and it's so true because the ones that you're doing that means like people aren't seeing the problem, and it means you're seeing, you know, either you're completely delusional or you're uniquely seeing a problem that no one is. Totally. And all the best ones are like that. It's like no one, you know, it's like an Airbnb. Like, why the fuck would I let someone sleep in my house? Or an Uber. Like, why would I trust a random person to drive? Yeah. It's those ones that are like the real magic compared to the obvious ones, which is like, oh yeah, of course, that sounds like a great idea. Like make another X whatever company.
Yeah. A lot of venture capitalists would say it's cope, but like in a lot of ways, getting no's is the signal. You know what I mean?
I need to hear that, Charlie. That's exactly what I need to hear right now. And let's talk about sweat equity. You know, so something you've mentioned, I think might have been on your first YouTube video, first or second, was this concept of you know, I guess the shining light for people instead of going to buy property is being able to get sweat equity in companies. So let's start with like, what is it? Yeah. And then, you know, how would a person go about getting it?
Yeah. So this is necessarily a broader idea than just being for entrepreneurs, which is that you don't have to start a company to own a part of it if your company has an equity program. So sweat equity is the idea is that you pick a company, you work for it, and in return, as well as your salary, you get some ownership. So like options, shares, that kind of thing. And the reason why I love it, and it's not hugely popular yet, it's very popular in the startups, is that it not only is massively financially rewarding if that company does well, so that, you know, there's obviously something great in it for the individual, but also it aligns it massively aligns the person to the role. So it's great for founders as well. And I think it has, in a world where the buy-in for property, and like, you know, Australia obviously has an obsession, as you say, with property, and it kind of makes me sick, that you don't actually need this starting capital to be given sweat equity. You just need your time. And that is such a leg up in a modern Australia where there isn't really any of those. So I think it's important that we talk about sweat equity more.
And how would you go about, I mean, there's a couple of things that flow through my head, right? Like the probability of a business being successful is it's not highly in its favor. But then you've also overlay that probability with like the probability that you can get it as an employee. Like, how do you best position yourself to get sweat equity in a company?
Yeah, so definitely worth noting that like most companies fail, right? So it's like in a lot of cases you're getting shares in something that will be worth zero. So yeah, you first got to think about that. I guess the framework for me has been give these companies a crack, like enter your career knowing that you can collect equity over time. Does that kind of get at what you were?
Yeah. So I guess the final part was that it was like, but how? So let's say I'm hearing Charlie. I'm excited. I want to get me some of that sweat.
Yeah.
You know, how do I do that?
Yeah. Well, for now, like the smartest thing would be to join a startup, like a technology startup, a growth company, like a venture-backed company in Australia. We know that this is an industry that's growing, and so the literal tactics of that would be jump on the venture capital websites, check out their portfolio, see what they've invested in, go to those companies' websites, go to the careers page. I saw a job for a cleaner at Gilmore Space. So like one of Australia's top rocket companies up in Queensland, a cleaner that would be offered ESOP.
No way.
So what do people go, oh, I'm not a techie person. I'm not a software person. I'm not a product manager. Like, I don't think people realize that startups in-house a huge amount of functions. In this case, including like janitorial services.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's out there for people. You just have to sort of know where to look.
Love it. Let's talk about Australia.
Sweet.
You said, and I cannot wait to dig into it, Australia's obsessed with property and it makes me sick. Let's start there. Why is that a problem that we're so obsessed with property?
Property it's an unproductive asset. So it's shelter for the people that live in it. In Australia, it's rent for the people that own it, the landlord. But it's not creating jobs, save for a few like property managers and real estate agents. Let's not forget those, how important those guys are. But yeah, it's not really producing anything. And so the capital that Australians borrow and go into, we borrow money to put it into an unproductive asset where I don't think people realise the level of returns that you can get from a business compared to a house, particularly today when the buy-in is so high and the growth rates as a percentage of that initial investment are relatively low compared to like what the boomers and what our parents experienced. But we still have this obsession with it that's sort of like, we saw our parents get ahead with property and that door's just shut. And so I kind of look at the people with property, pushing property as kind of, I wouldn't say undeserving in a way because you don't know everyone's individual scenario, but it's not really serving society as a whole.
Spicy. So, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm pretending I'm in the comments. I've seen this clip and I'm starting to rage at. I'm starting to rage at Charlie. So I'm going to throw a few of those comments to you.
Yeah.
The first one would be, but Charlie, the failure rate of business is, 90% or whatever the harsh stats are. Property is, for the average punter, I don't need to be hyper intelligent. I just need to find a property and, work in my job for the next 30 years and pay it off.
Yeah.
Surely from a risk profile, it's safer for me to go into property.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked, random commenter. Yeah, well, that used to be the case, right? So the calculus has changed now. I actually ran the numbers on this and I've got a video for the YouTube channel in the next week or so that sort of deals with this.
Love.
But if you take like a $200,000 house deposit and you compare it to a $200,000 investment in yourself where you pay yourself a $75,000 a year salary, so probably take a little bit of a pay cut. You give yourself 2 years and you have $50,000 to spend on inventory or software tools or prototypes. You can actually have multiple cracks at a business. So you can have like 4 6-month cracks in 2 years. And yes, the fail rate of business is like, did you say 70%?
Well,
something like that.
Yeah, people throw around numbers.
Yeah. The problem with that definition is that like, that's if you go all in on the same business for like an extended period of time. It's like, yep, I'm starting my cafe on the corner. And if it's like, you know pretty quickly if no one's coming in there, right? So I don't think it really takes into account this idea of like, what they used to call pivoting. And so you can change your idea and adapt so many times in 2 years, not to mention the compounding growth throughout. And also it's worth mentioning it's never been easier to start a company, right? With like contract manufacturers and AI and cheap content creation tools and social media and Facebook ads and whatever. So the costs of having multiple cracks is so low, the cost of housing is so high that this is the first time in history I think the calculus is like crossed over.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. It's Jark and I, my brother, for those who don't know, probably would know. We've talked about this a lot, right? It's this idea of like 90% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. And like I would love to unpack that to find out, like you're alluding to there, like find out a bit more about that, because how many of those are just like, when someone sets up an ABN, like has that triggered, like it's a business started, like in the last 3 months, Jacques and I have set up 7 ABNs with all these different, companies.
Cayman Islands. Can someone check these guys out?
In Australia, not Cayman. And so like how much of that is skewing the data? But I'm in your court. Like I believe it 100%. I think the key there for the audience around this idea of unproductive capital is like, the money is just sitting there, and the people that are making the most money is the banks. You touched on it the other day on a piece of content. It's like our banks are like the highest performing banks in like the world, like relative to our size.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Combank's $300 billion bank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I think like I read something, someone like it was in the Fin or some painful article. It was like including Combank in like the Mag 7, calling it like the Mag 8 by like all these American tech companies plus Combank. It was like, Jesus.
So like I couldn't agree more. And right now I reckon it's the golden age of starting a business.
Yeah.
Like like I don't know how long the window is going to be open for, but like what you have the ability to do and how quickly you can do it is crazy.
Yeah.
I'll give you a really cool example that hit my desk last week. So we've been doing this content once every week. We take one of these business ideas, we run it through a series of AI prompts. We've created a framework, and then at the end we go like give away the business idea and we say steal it. And so we did one which was protein gummies, and it was just like in 60 seconds show you, and then gave away the prompts. I got an email last week and someone said, "Hey, I just want to reach out, let you know I've taken the idea. We're in manufacturing right now, and in the next couple of weeks we'll be launching the market."
Crazy.
And I was like, fuck, that's cool.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
and everything from like, because it's a really good starting position. Now the brand's not like the best brand ever, but to your point, like if you put yourself in this like a 2-year time box and you go, cool, I'm going to pay myself a very little amount of money, and then like how do I not spend shitloads of money on the branding and all that kind of stuff? You can kind of actually get up and running for like almost nothing, like really with what's available. And it's only going to get better. Like over the next 12 months, right now, like let's say example, like ChatGPT to create a brand is the worst it's ever going to be.
Exactly.
And in 12 months, it's going to be like unreal. And like I'm brushing shoulders and meeting really like lots of young people building like pretty crazy businesses in a small period of time. Like there's a guy we know, 22 years old. His business now generating 2.5 million ARR, started 8 months ago, and it's an AI agency. So it's like, how do I help a business set up AI using AI agents in their thing?
Yeah.
The cool thing there is like, well, the knowledge right now is everything's so new. So you can't be like, I've got 10 years of experience. Like you can literally be like, I've got 4 months of experience, and you're like at the precipice of the knowledge.
Yeah. It's young people today are just like the generation coming through are just going to be absolute psychos when it comes to that.
Yeah. So overarching question, is Australia a good place to start a business?
I believe so. You get a lot of people saying, move to San Francisco, that kind of shit, move to America, it's better. And there's no doubt that it is. America is an awesome place to start a company. It's also highly competitive. Mm-hmm. Australia, the normal thing is to not. And so our population may not be massive, but there is plenty of blue ocean, so to speak, when it comes to starting things. And there's always the option to go overseas later. So I think it's also an awesome place to live. So I'm a big Australian maxi, even though it might not seem like it sometimes. Yeah.
And like from like how things are set up, like what are the things that do hold founders and businesses back from the way Australia is set up?
I think you had a video about this the other day. It was, I mean, there's obviously the structural things, right? You know, the regulation, the hoops you have to jump through. I think the thing that I've been thinking about is like the mentality that's holding us back. We don't deal well with cringe in Australia. But, you know, we've got like a slur for people that try hard, right? It's like you're a try hard. But trying hard is critical these days to get ahead if you're a young person, because things aren't handed to you the way they were for the boomers. So we all need to try hard and embrace our cringe. Thankfully, neither you or I seem to have a problem with that.
me cringe? What are you talking about, Charlie?
and then the other thing is the other thing is this. I think it's a very like, as a colonial outpost, Australians are used to deferring to higher levels of authority, and that means that we often take experts at face value. And if someone says something's not viable, you know, it could be like a high-speed rail, or it could be you in a meeting and someone telling you why your idea won't work. People go, oh, it's not viable, and that's sort of the end of it. But I think Australians would do better to sort of question why things are the way they are, and realise that, you know, we haven't been around for that long. We don't necessarily have the traditions that prevent us from doing anything. So there's like, those two things stand out to me as like things that hold us back, but like opportunities at the same time, you know?
100%. Like, let's put you in the position that you can make it change. What are the first things you're doing?
So do you mean at a system level?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a whole bunch of different things you could do. The one that's interesting at the moment is this idea that how do you sort of, I think it needs to be a grassroots thing. So how do we empower people to start businesses and get sort of innovation going again, get job creation going again? And so encouraging ESOP, so sweat equity, encouraging that to be more of a thing. Super was like, I'm a big believer that super was important for Australia. It was an important reform back from Keating in the 90s. And that ESOP could be a version of that, forcing companies to carve out a portion of their business, whether that's like ownership in the enterprise value or some kind of profit share, will be great to sort of get Australians interested in business and sort of exposed to the upside financially.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So that's pretty early stages, that idea. So I expect a few armchair economists to come at us with that one. What else? The other one that's sort of interesting to me is less grassroots, but it's more, the quality of our politicians is so low. Like, I don't know about how you felt after the last election, but it was like Albo or Dutton. It's like two really low grade options. And I was like, it dawned on me that like we're not fishing in the right talent pool. All our best people are like working at, you know, running Macquarie Bank or coaching footy teams. And instead we get people that like climbed the greasy pole for 30 years, survived in their parties, and then sort of are content on 230 grand a year because it's their life's calling to work in politics. I think we need to pay politicians $1 million a year and get the best candidates. And then I think you'll have some like trickle down effects of like, what are people that actually know how to run systems? If we have them up the top, what's the impact further down? So yeah, I'd come at it from two ends.
Love that. It is such an interesting thought, right? The whole idea, like I heard when I heard you talk about this idea of paying a politician $1 million, you know, you can feel the one side of the argument, like, what? Because then they'll get into it because they're greedy. But like, I'm like, no, like like, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. And if the incentive is like you're a weapon best in class at you know, being a leader, we could go get millions of dollars somewhere and like to pay someone $230 at $230,000, which is great, awesome salary, but like you're running a country.
Yeah.
Like it should be like one of the highest, you know, most rewarding things you can do. And rather than like the rewards coming in like the backdoor kind of, you know, this kind of reward where I'll scratch a couple of backs and then at the end, on the other end here, I'll sit on a nice couple of boards. Yeah.
Exactly.
And get paid sweet salaries. Like literally you're seeing the incentive and you're seeing the outcome of what that incentive is doing.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's like the behavior the behavior that we're incentivizing. And it's like, I think it has a lot to do with Australia's, we're sort of embarrassed to want to receive money. We're embarrassed to sort of win. We think that if people are doing things, if people are going into politics, they should be doing it out of the kindness of their heart. But like, why can't they do it out of the kindness of their heart and also make it an easy decision when they're like dealing with their family shit and their sort of aspirations for looking after their family from a financial perspective? We have to get over that. Yeah, money's not necessarily the driver for people. It's just like, it just helps grease the decision.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah. Can we change it? Like, you know, one of the things you mentioned there, you said, I'm not sure how you felt about the politics as it. I'll be really honest with Australian politics. I've just not paid attention.
Yeah.
And the reason why is, and I could get roasted for this, but it's just like after seeing a series of like, you know, people get like, if this person gets in, things change, and then after enough time, you're like, nothing has changed.
Yeah,
like,
you realise it's the same.
Yeah,
right?
nothing has changed. And like I know some people in certain businesses, and you hear some of the stuff in terms of like labor and, you know, having people in the unions that are full bikie gang members and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, and so I almost just don't pay attention because I'm like, either way, it's just gonna be the same shit. And so my question is, I mean, I don't think that's a very helpful way of thinking. And I think that's probably part of the problem is everybody thinks like that. But can it change?
I think it's really hard, but you need to believe that we can make like structural changes that like turn things around. So like there's been governments, like a cynic would say that like you need war or like civil war or something like really gnarly to actually affect like mass scale change. That's a kind of scary idea to me. We don't want that. Then you look at like countries like Singapore, which have had golden eras, you know, since the sort of 70s. And obviously not without its problems, but like a country that's clean, safe, good for business. People tend to be proud of being Singaporean. And there was a whole bunch of really hard reform to get there. And so I look at countries like Singapore and go, I think Australia needs that really hard reform, but it's going to take like some bold people in charge. And like that $1 million politician, pay politicians $1 million idea, no politician is going to like put that forward.
Yeah.
You sort of need someone to like put it forward and go, yeah, politicians should get paid $1 million, but I'm not going to take it myself.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like the only way that works. But then it changes the status of not taking it, and like it's a minefield, but you just got to believe, Frank.
So true. So true. Sorry. So why, like, you know, it's pretty big change from, you know, marketing, business, that kind of side to like kind of focusing on this at the moment. Like, why has it shift been? Like, what's your intent? What are you hoping to get out of, you know, this new pivot for you?
Yeah. I think part of it is just when you feel like you understand a secret about the world that's underrated, you kind of want to let people in on that secret. And I sort of stumbled upon, I had a normal upbringing, relatively normal career and sort of stumbled upon business and sweat equity. And it's been really good for me. And so when you see that young people struggling to get a house and disenfranchised about how they feel about work and business in the world, it's like, well, maybe this will work. Maybe my experience is useful. And so I guess I'm just treating it like that. Now that I've sort of stepped away from Eucalyptus, I'm like, have a bit of creative freedom to explore things and not put too grand a design on it and just sort of like follow my nose a little bit, you know?
Love that.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the things that I love. There's like, it's probably no secret. I'm bullish on Australia. Like I love it. I love it here, probably for all the similar reasons you do. And part of the reason that I feel the need to talk about it online is because I think that's, I'm not going to go into politics ever. I'll just say that right now. I just will never be able to do it. But I feel like part of my part to the world, and I hope to inspire more, is like, if we have enough people in doing business in Australia, building personal brands and talking about that kind of stuff, like that also that starts to have an effect. That starts to have effect. One of the things I've been kind of amazed by is like how much content the next younger generation are consuming. So like one of the great examples is like I got reached out to by a 13-year-old who's like, I want to build my business. I would like for you to be my mentor. And I was just like, I got to do this because this is really interesting to me. And he's talking to me about all this content he's listening to, and he's like got all these views of the world. And I'm like, holy Jesus, like I did not have any of those for so long. And I think like that's part, I think, the unselfish part of like why I encourage like building personal brands from a from a founder perspective is like that opportunity to inspire the next generations. And there's so many shit examples of people who are like, it's all about the Lambo and the this and the that, and like, look how cool I am, I'm living blah blah. But like, if you can do it in a way that's like authentic and it actually has like value and helps, I think that's part of the thing that I'll happily do, and hopefully we can inspire a few others to build those personal brands.
Massively.
We won't be getting into politics.
No, I mean, like, that's the thing is like, you got me thinking, it's like, there is a link between building a business. It's an underrated link between building a business and improving, like contributing to society. And it's like, yes, you're financially looking after yourself and that's great. And everyone needs to look after their sort of, put their face mask on first or oxygen mask on first when the plane's crashing. That's scary. But once you've done that, it's like you can bring everyone up with you with new technologies, innovations, like new jobs. You're paying heaps of tax. Like in a way, business is an underrated social contribution.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Hugely. I had a comment yesterday, and it would have been from Australian, which is like, don't you find it a bit greedy that you guys sold for 180 mil and now you're building another business? And like, isn't that very greedy that you're looking for more money? And I think there's part of that problem with the mentality is it's a zero-sum game. And the zero-sum game is like, if I build a successful company, it means others can't. Yeah. But it's like, it just doesn't work like that. Like if you build a new product, you are, generating revenue for taxes, you're employing people, you're doing all of these things. It's actually, the game is abundant. It doesn't have to be like I win, you lose kind of thing. Yeah. And I think that's that's part of that mentality and mind shift that has to change. Yeah.
I mean, businesses only capture like a tiny fraction of the value that they create, really. Yeah. And founders even a smaller fraction.
So let's, as we round it off, let's bring it back to the business side. Like, what does it look like in the future for Charlie?
I think I want to start another company. Something in the media space. I'm not exactly sure what that looks like yet. I'm sort of, I guess, frustrated with sort of journalism and how shallow it is. And I understand like why, because it's nothing against the journalists. They're paid to like punch out stories, right?
It's bought and paid for.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think there's an opportunity in the sort of economics of journalism that I'm interested in. But until then, it's kind of like, I've got a 3-year-old boy. I've got another baby on the way in a couple of months. My wife and I are enjoying building a family and sort of like doing the content feels like a manageable, life at the moment. Bit of that, bit of dad mode, and yeah, like I said before, don't have grand designs. Just enjoying life, putting one foot in front of the other, and seeing where it all ends up.
Love that. And as you reflect on the journey you've been through, what are you most proud of?
I think it's easy to zoom out here, but I'll probably keep it tactical. I think Eucalyptus, that journey, very painful journey. And its job's not done. Eucalyptus is still functioning, still growing. Tim's doing a great job running that. But I think the thing that I'm proud of is the culture that we created. So the actual active company building and the people that love working there. And then we've meaningfully driven the cost of doctor consults down and increased the throughput of which how many doctors, how quickly doctors can perform a high quality consult. So very tactical metrics that I'm sort of specifically proud of in the last few years that I think about a lot. I would say that's the extent of the things that I'm happiest with, but yeah, a lot more to do, as the footy players say. You know, mate. Not looking too far ahead, but that's what comes to mind, Frank.
Love that.
Yeah.
And one last thing for the audience who stayed all the way to the end here, they've been loving it. What's something you've been thinking about lately that you think would add value to their lives?
What have I been thinking about lately? Yeah, the easy answer is AI, but I thought your post about having the conversations in the car, I don't know if it was you, Kai, or who was in the car when you guys were having that conversation, but just challenging your thinking with AI is still massively underrated. And yes, you can feel crazy. There's probably all the alphas in that feeling of being crazy, talking to the AI. So that's nothing profound, but that's the one I'm thinking about a lot off the back of your rant.
Yeah, very good. Charlie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Frank, for having me.